Hi there, today's book is Someone We Know by Shari Lapena. So this book is set in a small town in upstate New York. At the beginning of this book, it is a little bit gory, so just a little warning there. The book starts out with somebody who just snuck up behind this lady, who we don't know at this point, and began to bash her with a hammer. Now, there was just so much rage in this attack that even when her head and became to the point of pulp that when this person was done, her head was just, her eyes area was just out the socket, just mushed up. So I just wondered, who would have such rage to do this to this person. So we get to find out that the person who was killed is Amanda Pierce. Now, at this point, I'm like, it has to be the husband. Because we have Robert Pierce going to the police station and very matter-of-factly reporting that his wife is missing. And he seems to be just not showing a whole lot of emotion. Imagine if your spouse was, supposed to be out of town and you haven't heard a word all weekend long. But then he waits until Monday to go to the police station to report her missing. He just seemed to not care a whole lot. So I was just like, he's suspicious. So anyway, we find out that his wife, Amanda, was supposed to be on a girls' weekend trip with her friend. At least that's the story that Robert is telling anyway. And he wasn't able to get a hold of her. Finally, when he got a hold of her friend revealed that they didn't have plans this weekend. So that was suspicious. And that made me question if what Robert was saying was really true. Or was this his ploy to, have an alibi as far as what had happened. So we also meet the other main characters who live nearby Amanda in this community along the same street. They're in close proximity of each other in this community that they live in. So there's Olivia and Paul. They have a teenage son, Raleigh. And then we also meet Olivia's good friend, Glenda. She's married to her husband, Keith, and they have a son around the same age as Raleigh, who's Adam. I think he's around 16 as well. So Glenda would come over to their house for dinner. They'd have, dinner at each other's house every once in a while. And Adam and Raleigh are somewhat friends. They'll hang out sometimes. And then we also meet their neighbor, who is Becky, and her husband, Larry. Their children are growing and off to college, but Larry is almost non-existent in the book. He's always gone on a business trip, which was kind of suspicious. Poor lady. This man is always gone. So we find that Raleigh has been breaking into people's houses while they were out, and the people didn't really know that this was happening. And the reason that the parents became aware of this is that when he was, how teenagers sleep in, he was sleeping, some message popped up from his friend asking about, the break-in, and the mom saw it, and she was livid. So he had to confess that he broke into a couple houses. He didn't tell the whole truth as far as the scope and the extent to which he was doing this. But basically, he was breaking into their houses to, hack. So his reason that he was giving was that he was trying to expand his hacking skills. He didn't really take anything, he didn't really reveal anything, but he would send random goofy messages from their email. So she decides, she talks to her husband, Paul, about it. But before she did that, she took it upon herself to send apology letters to, the people whose houses Raleigh had broken into. She tried to make it anonymous, of course, and of course he didn't tell how many. So she ended up sending, I think it was 2 letters or maybe 3. So one happened to be actually Robert Pierce's house, and then the other was to this other lady in the community, an older lady. She's retired. So in the letter, she, apologizes for her son, let them know they had broken into their house. He didn't take anything, but she wanted to apologize. And then in that letter, she mentions that there are a couple other houses, which I don't know why she did that. But anyway, when she talked to her husband about this and they consulted an attorney, the attorney advised them not to tell anybody about this. But of course, she had already sent out these letters. Of course, she didn't confess this right away because she's like, oh my God, they're so adamant about this. She knew she messed up, but she didn't want to tell right away. So Raleigh was decided, she's not going to tell the parents the extent of it. And so he was pretty much put on not a curfew, but punishment where he wouldn't have his cell phone for a while and limited as to where he can go. So as this investigation starts out into the death of Amanda, she was eventually found in a lake on the way out of town. And her body was in the trunk of the car when they finally recovered the vehicle. So this is what now leads into an investigation by the police to figure out who had killed her. Now, in the process of the investigation, we find out that Amanda was having multiple affairs. So she was known to be a flirt, and funny enough, she was temping at the company that Paul worked, and I think Keith also worked at the same company as well, and Larry, funny enough, I believe Larry works at the same company as well. So we find out that somebody, Becky, I think Becky, had seen Paul and Amanda together, and she decides, that she was gonna tell the police after suspicion was laid at her husband Larry's feet, because Paul had mentioned that Larry and Amanda were having an affair, and he was trying to talk Larry out of getting involved. He had witnessed something. So Glenda decides that, I'm sorry, not Glenda, Becky decides that since her husband was bringing that up, she was going to bring up what she saw about her husband, which she had seen Paul in the car with Amanda at one point. So now we don't know who is really telling the truth, but we do know that Amanda had a reputation in the office of being extremely flirty, and it seems like she slept around, which, Robert Pierce had not mentioned anything about that. So we find out that Amanda had an affair with Larry, who is Glenda's husband. Glenda didn't know about it, but she ultimately found out. He claimed he didn't kill her. And of course, Paul is saying he never had an affair with her. Then we find out that Keith, ultimately find out that Keith was also having an affair with her as well. So pretty much all the men in the neighborhood. Now we find out that later on in the book that the husband knew of the affair with Larry, which brings into question whether he was involved and whether he was jealous of her affair and maybe have something to do with her death. So we have a bunch of people who are suspects in this death. Now, at the end of the book, we discover who really killed Amanda, and I was shocked. I did not see that coming either. And we find out that there is a co-conspirator in this death, and it's somebody that we would not have suspected either. So this was an enjoyable read. It was just crazy how everybody's lives are all intertwined, and the people that, feel like they have such a solid marriage really didn't have it at all. And it turned out that Robert wasn't involved, even though he was a jerk. He wasn't involved in her death. So this was an enjoyable read because the plot was so unpredictable. It was like a whole soap opera and drama throughout the book. So I enjoyed that, and I highly recommend this as well. 4.5 stars on this, I would say. So if you have read or listened to this book, let me know your thoughts. Until next time.